Welcome back, advanced topic students. Today we're taking on section 1.2, formulas and percentages. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Formula. So you hear this all the time used in mathematics. What is the formula? Formulas everywhere. Quadratic formula. Okay, what does it mean? Well, a formula is just an equation with variables that describe a relationship. Okay, we're not talking about your personal relationships or your boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. We're talking about relationships between the variables, between the inputs and the outputs and all that. A good example over here is over to the right. We have B and H in a triangle, and this is just the area of a triangle. So here we have area, which is a variable because we're not sure what it's going to be. And then we have two other variables, base and height. We're not sure what they are. They could depend, they could grow, they could increase. It could be anything, okay? So that is a formula because it has variables that describe a relationship. As the base and height increase, then the area will also increase, okay? Mathematical model is very similar, just a little bit different. It is an equation with inequality or an inequality that describes a real situation. So this is an equation or inequality that describe real world situation. Okay, so this is very important when you're talking about models, economics, the stocks use this, businessmen use this. This is a mathematical model that helps make informed decisions that you use in the real world. Now here we're talking about solving the formula I equals PRT. This is an interest formula you can use as a mathematical model, and the crux of this example 1, is to get you to understand that you can rearrange variables around so you can get a different relationship described. So this particular one says solve the formula I equals PRT for T. So we're looking for T here. And now before we get into actually rearranging it, we should probably describe what the variables mean. So this would be your interest. So if you had an interest formula, this would be it. So I would be interest. P would be the principal amount. So this is the principal, also known as like the starting amount. And this, we're all talking about money here. So we're talking about money. Okay. Rate would be the interest rate. And then T stands for time. Now there's all different kinds of reasons you might want to rearrange this for time. One reason is, let's say you're programming a bank's online website and you want people to be able to describe or to find out how much money they would earn after a certain amount of time. You would need to solve for T. So let's go ahead and try that here. We have I equals PRT. One thing you can do is you can just divide both sides by PR. If you want to do it one at a time, you're not comfortable with that, I equals PRT, and then just divide by P first, okay, and then go on from there, ... That's fine, but it's not efficient. It's nothing wrong with doing that, it's just not the best way to go about it. You can divide by PR at the same time, very much in the same way if you had an equation, you could divide both sides by 2x. Okay, we have a 2 and an x. We have a p and an r. You can do the same thing. Okay, I just wanted to give some clarification for that. So we cross off the p and the r's, and now we are left with I over PR, and that equals t. So we're done. Now we have t as all by itself on the equal sign, and it's in regard, that's the output, and the input is the interest and the principal divided by the principal and the rate. Now we can do the same thing with just any regular equation. Here we have a linear equation. Solve 3x minus 4y equals 12 for y. Let's first find our y. We have our y there, and now we want to get everything over to the other side. Okay, we want to get the y by itself. A couple different ways you can do this. You could add 4y to both sides first. That way you get the y positive. It's not necessary though. Just keep in mind if it's a negative sign, you're going to eventually have to divide by a -1, okay? And we'll do it that way just so you can see, because I think most people would prefer to do it this way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3x. Since it's a positive 3x here, we want to get it to the other side by the opposite operation. That cancels out on the left. We have -4y. We're getting closer to having y isolated. minus 3x. Now we're going to divide both sides by a negative 4. Be careful here. A lot of people, what they'll do, a lot of my students, what I notice is they'll only do 12 divided by negative 4, and they'll forget to do the 3x divided by negative 4. You have to divide by each term on that side of the equal sign. So let me get my blue. So this crosses off here. Okay, and now we have y by itself, so we're basically done. Now we just need to show that minus 3x over, and we divide it by negative 4. Okay, this looks a little goofy, but this is how I like to show it. Technically, we're subtracting, but we're going to have to do some division here to really clear that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and get my green out. And we're going to not cancel this, but we're left with 3, but it's going to be negative. So we have y equals negative 3. And then we have negative divided by negative. That's going to give us a positive. 3 over 4 can't be reduced. And then I like to put x in the top. There is our equation. This is technically in slope-intercept form now. Oftentimes you'll see that. You'll probably see it written like this. But that's why it's pretty useful to be able to solve for different variables. Let's talk about percents. Percent literally means per 100. If you think about century, century means 100, so percent is a way to say per 100. This is a way to describe a proportion of something. The amount of a fraction, the amount of a whole. So this is essentially a part out of a whole. Part out of a whole, where the whole is equal to 100. Okay, so this is a part out of a whole. Let me change this to an arrow. Like that. Okay. So now we have a couple different percents. There's different ways to describe these. So number one, we could say 1% is equal to 0.01. How do I do that? Well, to go from a percent to a decimal, okay, it's per 100. So to go from a percent to a decimal, percents out of 100, we need to divide by 100 to get to our decimal base. Okay, to get to our decimal base, we divide by 100. Another way to do this is to move the decimal place. So move the decimal 2 places to the right. No, that's false. It's 2 places to the left because we want to make the number smaller. Okay, so 2 to the left. Move decimal left. Okay, so left. 2 spaces. Okay. If you want to go from a decimal to percent, you go the exact opposite. You're going to multiply by 100, you move the decimal 2 places to the right. Now we can also express a percent as a fraction. So we could say this is 1 out of 100. Okay, and that's another way to do that. A decimal value is essentially the partial amount divided by the whole amount. And I kind of wrote that up here already, but the whole amount. And then if you wanted to multiply the decimal value by 100, that's when you get your percent. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. And then timesing by 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal place 2 places to the right, so it gets bigger. So this is move decimal right 2 spaces. Okay, we have 2 examples we're going to do here real quick. Class consists of 50 students, 32 are male. What percent are female and then male? So a class consists of 50 students. This is our whole. Well, let's first break down. We have part and then we have whole. We know there are 50 students. So the whole equals 50 students. Now for female, the part that we want is 32. So we have, oops, I'm sorry, that's wrong. For male, we'll go ahead and do male first. We'll take 32 because that's our part for male. And we do divide it by the total, which is 50. Okay, now you can go ahead, you could use a calculator, you could long divide this, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to do 32 divided by 50, and you're going to get a decimal. So you do 32 divided by 50. Some of you will be able to do this in your head. 32 divided by 50, and we get 0.64. As I shared above, what you need to do now is multiply this by 100, or move the decimal place 2 times to the right, and you get 64%. Now, I think the easiest thing to do would be to just subtract that from 100 and get the female, but I'm going to show that we can do it another way. So I'll use the remaining student, which are 18 out of the total of 15, or out of 50. So we do 18 divided by 50, and that's going to give us 36.36, 0.36. We multiply this by 100, and we get 36%. This needs to add up to 100%, and it does. So there's our answer there. Now, if $4,780 earns 5% interest in 1 year, how much interest is earned? We can go back up here to our interest formula. I equals PRT. I is the initial investment, or excuse me, this is the interest. That's what we're looking for. P is the principal amount, so that's $4,780. R is the interest rate, but we need to write this as a decimal, so 0.5. You move the decimal place 2 times to the left, add the decimal, and change this to red, style, red, and the 0.5 is our R, and then T equals 1. So we just need to multiply these things together. I equals PRT equals 4,780 times 0.05 times 1. And that's going to equal I. So this is definitely probably a good time for a calculator, times 0.05, and I got $239. Hope you guys find this helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Wes Explains Best.